Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our webinar session today. My name is Sandra, and I'm the marketing coordinator at TorontoJobs.ca. And joining me, we have two presenters, is Eglys. She is the director of recruitment at TorontoJobs.ca, and Teodora. She is an account executive at TorontoJobs.ca, and they will be discussing the topic, thinking outside of the box when recruiting. Just a couple of things before they start their discussion. We are recording the session today, so if you would like to share it with someone who couldn't join us today, or if you would like to go back and just jot down a couple of extra notes that maybe you hadn't had a chance to do during the webinar, we are sharing it on YouTube, so you can get the recording there. And also, we are going to be having a question and answer period at the end of the session, so probably about the last 5 minutes. So if you have a question, there's a box at the bottom of your screen. It's labeled Q&A, and you can post all of your questions in there. I think that's all from my end, so I'm just going to pass it on to our presenters. I'll stop sharing my screen, and I'll be back at the end just to help close everything out and just to moderate the Q&A session. Thank you.
All right, hello everyone. So my name is Eglys, and I am the Director of Recruitment here at TorontoJobs.ca. So thank you so much for joining us. I think our attendance is quite big today, which hopefully that means that there is a need for something like this, and at least some ideas and discussions about how we can be more effective in our recruitment methods. So hope this helps you guys out. A bit about myself. Well, I've been in the recruitment industry for over 10 years, and I've seen all kinds of economies and markets. This is obviously very unique given that we are in a pandemic. So there are a lot of points that we'll be making throughout the webinar today that highlight that, right? And really just hopefully can help us out through this very unique time. And yeah, thank you so much again. So I will pass it on to Teodora, who will introduce herself now.
Thank you so much, Eglys, and thank you everyone for being here. My name is Teodora, and I'm an account executive here at TorontoJobs.ca. More recently, I also moved into recruitment, so I'm kind of doing 360 desk, and I get to see, which is really nice in my opinion, I get to see the client end as well as the candidate end, and I'm hearing both sides and both struggles on either side, which is really great because then when I come in the middle and try to solve these problems, then I get to have everyone's kind of input on the matter. So thank you again for joining, and I'll just give you a little brief rundown on the agenda for today. So Eglys and I will be running through some of our thoughts and observation on the Canadian job landscape, as well as the state of the labor market. We will also be sharing some of our thoughts on the current trends and how the pandemic has affected the recruitment industry, and how these traditional ways of hiring that we've been used to have completely shifted and aren't really working the same or attracting candidates in the same way. So the webinar should take about half an hour, and we will have some time at the end, like Sandra said, for Q&As. So if you just want to drop your questions in the chat, we'll get to as many as possible. And without further ado, Eglys will just start with some stats on the current labor market.
Thank you, Teodora. So as mentioned, one thing that we love to do here at TorontoJobs is discuss just the job market and really stay in tune with what's going on out there. So a couple things that I'm going to highlight. I won't go too in depth, but really just one thing to note is that in the labor market, the job numbers came out for January, and it turns out that employment fell by 200,000 in January, which is a big number for a country like Canada. So, things that we can consider when we look at this number is that it shows that perhaps even though there is a big unemployment or unemployment rose, we're still struggling to find candidates. And maybe in previous markets where we didn't have the pandemic as a factor, that would have meant that we could recruit easier because we have more candidates to recruit from. Now, even though there may be a bit more in the candidate pool, we're still finding it challenging. So that's why we feel it's important to look at perhaps the recruitment methods, maybe finding creative ways to find candidates, because that's not necessarily going to determine whether it's easier to find candidates or not right now. That's the way it is. Another thing to note is that the total hours worked fell by 2.2%. And, that may be a result to people, again, staying home more, perhaps working more part-time than before. So things that employers really should be considering right now when it comes to flexibility, whether you are able to offer that. It may make sense to offer 2 part-time positions rather than try to find the perfect person to fill a full-time position. Maybe not, but it could be something to consider as well. And just quickly to round it off, I want to mention just overall in Canada, the unemployment rate, the lowest unemployment rate is in British Columbia and Manitoba. So the highest, though, is out east in Newfoundland, Labrador, with 12.8%. Now here in Ontario, we're at 7.3%. And why I want to say that is because if we are struggling to find people here in Ontario, you may consider pulling people or relocating candidates from out east, where the unemployment rate is quite higher. So something as well to consider. All right. And same thing goes locally. So Toronto's unemployment rate is 7.7, while Peterborough has the highest in Ontario of 8.7. Again, 2 hours away. A lot of times, we want to find a candidate next door or down the street. However, maybe it is time to start looking remotely, 2 hours away in Peterborough, in that area where more people perhaps are looking for work. All right, so we're going to start off now with our ways to think outside the box when recruiting. And the first tip or first thing we want to talk about is partnering with associations, employment centers, and colleges. So if you're not doing this already, this is a really great way to get more exposure to different markets, to different candidates, and really just become or have an effective partnership that could lead to more recruitment. Things that we do here at Toronto Jobs, and I'll mention a few, but just to give you guys ideas, we have a great partnership with Access Employment Services. So they have various locations throughout Ontario, and they provide different programs, especially to immigrants and newcomers to Canada. They specialize they have specialized programs towards finance. So candidates who are looking to specialize in the finance market, or let's say bilinguals as well. So they have programs that are tailored only for bilingual candidates, which if you are looking for bilingual candidates, you know how hard it is to find. So if you're partnering with an employment center or an organization that does that, you'll have another way, another source to dig at and find bilingual candidates. The other thing, of course, for us, because we do specialize in accounting positions, we do partner with CPA as well, which is a huge help. And, whether it's CPA or any other association, if you have a specific niche or field that you heavily recruit from, then you might want to consider those associations related to that field. And then, of course, colleges. So there's so many colleges and universities, and that's a great thing for us recruiters and hiring managers. Here we partner with some colleges such as Humber College, Centennial College, and that really opens us up to recruiting from recent grads, entry-level positions, but also don't forget that they have graduate programs and alumni programs as well. So doesn't necessarily mean that you're stuck at recruiting for entry-level positions. So those are just some ideas, and that would be the first tip that we have, and I'll pass it on to Teodora.
Yeah, so for the second tip, another less traditional way of recruiting is using webinars to promote your roles. So another great way to attract candidates, especially if you're looking to do high volume recruitment, is through hosting these webinars. For example, TorontoJobs.ca has webinars that we host, and we target, we have databases that we target, which are highly specialized, including our CEO and entrepreneur database, which has over 13,000 business owners and decision makers, as well as our job seeker database with over 200,000 candidates, which is constantly growing. And essentially, TorontoJobs.ca would facilitate the setup and back end of the webinar and leave the presentation to you and your team. So why is this a benefit to you? First of all, you would think that it speeds up the process. So in this 30 minutes, you can discuss anything that you would like. You have your 30 minutes to complete disclosure over what you want to discuss or what you'd like to present. You can discuss the perks of working at your company, as well as any roles that you're currently actively recruiting for. Anything that would, entice people to come work for your company culture, or if there's anything that you offer on the side. Also, this allows for recruiters and candidates to interact from the very start. So instead of a traditional job board where you would post and have somebody apply and send in their resume, this allows for one-on-one discussion right from the start. And especially if you have a moderator with you during the presentation, you can have the moderator answering any questions in the Q&A box. Another reason is that it targets multiple candidates at once. So through these webinar presentations, you'll have the opportunity to interact with many skilled candidates, as well as you would receive a list of the participants at the end that you could contact after the presentation. And even if you don't find these participants to be a fit for your current roles, you never know when you may have a role that they could be a fit for. So in that way, you're keeping your pipeline open for high volume recruitment. And again, the second point was being open to using webinars to promote your roles.
Excellent. So another way, and something that's been, prominent, of course, with recruiting was job posts, but I'm not going to mention job posts because we feel like, those times of posting and praying are long gone. But adding to that is really how you're posting, right? So being creative with your job posts, as well as your social media presence. So more specifically is how are you presenting the role initially to candidates, right? What is the first impression that they get from just the job posts? And, what I'm finding candidates' feedback is, more candidates are saying, well, I applied to this position because of the post drew my attention. It appealed to me because there was more detail. I thought, it was more revealing than your standard responsibilities and requirements. So really that's what we're trying to get away from more and more, is not just keeping it to responsibilities and requirements, but really talking more about the company, talking more in detail about the job itself. So, tell the candidates, what is this job going to look like a little bit more, and tell them about the company, and not just like, we've been around since this day, but like, what is the company about? What is the company culture about, right? What is going to appeal most to them, right? What is the reason how are you selling to them, essentially? I've seen companies be really creative with their applications and invite the candidates, or the applicants, I should say, to a virtual tour of their office, right? So this is a wonderful way to, first of all, get them to your website if that's where it's going to be directed to, but also just get them engaged and present your office workspace. Perhaps there's some other videos out there that you'd like to share with them, whether it's your staff, whether it's a company event. So there's some really great creative ways and using technology and social media to do that. Don't be afraid to show personality in your posts. I think that, of course, there's always a fine line of professionalism that we have to contain, but beyond that, it's okay to have sometimes a funny image or a funny headline or something with a little bit of spunk. And I think that candidates more and more, especially in this world that we are in right now, these times are very serious. So right now they do appeal, and they do gravitate towards something that's a little bit more lighter. So don't forget about that as well. And some examples to just give you guys of things that we're seeing from our clients, or from hiring managers out there, are just making sure that you are putting information or the appealing information on the job posts or on social media, whether it's flex hours that you're advertising, whether it's mental health initiatives, because it's such a big topic, and candidates want to feel like they are being taken care of in that way. Whether it's reevaluating your benefit plan and seeing if it's a flex plan now rather than what it used to be. Having fun Fridays or at work, or company events that you're marketing. I think overall we just really need to make sure that we're making it more about the candidates than we used to be previously.
So moving on to the fourth point, another way that we can move away from the traditional resources of recruiting is through email blasts. So as mentioned, TorontoJobs.ca has various highly targeted databases that can help increase your brand exposure, one of which is our job seeker database. So again, there's over 200,000 candidates that are currently looking for jobs, and they may have found jobs, may be actively recruiting, but it's getting this high volume and reaching out to them that would give you your answer whether or not they would like to work and fill the role that you have. So email blasts are standalone messages that go directly to the job seekers. So instead of having candidates search through a job board for your posting, this is a more proactive way of drawing their attention to the job opening. And it's a more direct way of getting a response. So essentially, I've been talking to both, like I said, clients and candidates. And what I'm hearing mostly from candidates is that they're frustrated and they're tired of scrolling through job boards, applying, sending in their resume, and potentially not even receiving a reply. And that is frustrating for sure, and it's understandable, but it's not that they don't want to work. It's not that they're not actively searching. It's that, they're kind of burning out through the old process. Whereas this is a newer process where you can actually directly reach out to them. And then if they are interested, they can respond to that. And the content of the email is to be created by you. So you can completely decide what you'd like to include, including anything about the company, any open roles that you may have, maybe even a link to your landing page for candidates to apply directly. And this will definitely gain more traction through the database as well as through word of mouth and being passed on to other people that they may know. And as Eglys mentioned, colleges and employment centers and other associations are also a great resource for advertising these job openings. So you can even consider sending out an email blast with any current job openings that you may have and send them out to these partners for maximum exposure. Ask them to share it with their database of either newcomers or bilingual candidates, whatever it may be. But in this way, you're constantly keeping your pipeline open.
Okay. So our last point, our fifth point, is considering signing bonuses and relocation bonuses. So we all know what signing bonuses are. However, truthfully, being in this business for 10 years, it's not something that's been super common, right? And it is now starting to become more of a necessity, especially when we are really competing for candidates. So right now, what we're seeing is, between technology expanding every minute and of course, living through a pandemic, the world is getting smaller and more people are also open to moving around, which brings me to relocation bonuses. So it's not just signing bonuses, but if the candidate is willing to move closer to your office, whether it be from a different city or different province, how are we securing that, or I guess motivating their decision to do that? Well, it's usually with a relocation bonus, right? So something to consider, something that we are starting to see more about. We have a client, for example, in that they have a headquarters in Regina, Saskatchewan, and they're finding it very difficult to find people. Something that they've worked with us on is providing a relocation bonus to our candidates, right? So yes, our candidates are from here, from Toronto, from Ontario, but a lot of candidates right now are looking to move out of the GTA, or there's recent grads that are open to moving, and that's what we work with, and providing or offering that relocation bonus helps tremendously. The other thing is, of course, signing bonuses, right? And we're all aware of this, and I mentioned that, but it is something that's just becoming more common. I've seen it myself firsthand with candidates. If they have two offers at hand, and one is a typical offer and the other one is the same but has a signing bonus, more often than not, they're going to go with the signing bonus one. So it is something we come across all the time now. And for those who are not considering it, it's something that you can think about and play around with and see how it affects your hiring. And last, before we wrap things up and go to our Q&A, I do want to mention about Kahuza. So we talked about technology, we're talking about being creative, and actually our sister company, Kahuza, I think, well, hopefully Sandra will spell it out for you because it is different. It's Guhuza. And it is a new platform that's been being created. It's in the works. It is up and running currently, so you feel free to check it out. But basically, it's a very exciting platform because it's not your typical job post. It's not your typical job board. It is actually a platform where both job seekers and hiring managers can come together, and it's live. So you have the ability to meet live, on the spot. Gahuza has the technology to let you know who's online, who's not online. It will match candidates for you, just as many applications out there do already. But in addition to that, you can actually request a meeting right away. So if you haven't checked it out, do so. We are very excited about this project, and we have, again, just it's bringing hiring to a different level. All right, and I'll let Teodora take the conclusion.
Great. Well, that's pretty much everything. I wanted to thank everyone for your time. And if you want to discuss any more about the current trends and how Toronto Jobs can help you, we'd be more than happy to help you to have that conversation with you. I will also put in our LinkedIn links, so please feel free to connect with Eglys and I, and we're happy to stay connected if there's anything that we can support with. And I'm happy to answer any questions. If there's anyone that wants to just drop one in the Q&A chat, we're happy to answer any questions that you may have. And then Sandra, maybe if you can let me know, I'm not seeing the chat.
Hey.
Yep, so just if there's any questions in the chat, it's not coming up for me for some reason.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so I actually have a question here, whether Eglys or you would like to answer it. So how have employers changed the way they're interviewing?
Well, I think the obvious first point is that they're interviewing online now, right? Before we would make it a point to connect face to face in person and really get a feel for the individual. Now everything is becoming more virtual. So I think that's probably the most obvious answer. But I think also another key factor is that interviews are happening quicker than before. Because it is such a competitive market out there. If you haven't sped up your process, you're going to have a tough time. That's reality. It's people who are still doing the 4 interview process spread out are having tougher times because retaining the interest of candidates. So really we recommend, and what we're seeing more and more is the quick 1 or 2 interviews, and sometimes back to back in the same day or the next day, because it is competitive. So, as we know, time kills all deals. But I say those are the 2 biggest ways for sure.
Okay, so I don't know, Teodora, if you'd like to add anything at all?
Yeah, just on that point, another thing is just when you're looking at when you're looking at the recruitment process, you want to ensure that it's not all about, what your needs are as the company. You're looking more to how is the candidate going to benefit? Because at the end of the day, they want to know, how are we going to benefit from working here? So it's kind of switching the mindset from all about us, all about the company, to like, how does this person fit into our company, and making sure that's an appropriate fit and not just out of necessity, unfortunately, which I know right now is a really hard thing because everyone needs workers, but it's also ensuring that they are a proper fit for the company and it's in everyone's best interest.
Okay, so we have another question here. How can we avoid or have less candidates from ghosting us?
Well, I'll start by answering this, and then Teodora can jump in anytime. So I'd say the first thing is just making sure that it's tedious communication, right? As recruiters, we experience this. We always have, but of course, it's really kind of repetitive communication, and holding them accountable. Whether it's saying, okay, I'm going to send you this email. I want you to confirm as soon as you receive it, maybe connect with me, or it's almost like giving them the reasons to follow up. So I would say, complete this test or this questionnaire. So that I find that actually works really well. So if you have any kind of task for them to do prior interviewing them, that actually works. Because for me, I say, hey, if they're really interested in this, we're going to keep them engaged. And if they're interested, they're going to do the same thing back. So whether it's a few questions that they got to fill out, whether it's an application form, whatever it is, then have them do that. And the candidates who do it are the ones that are likely, going to show up for the interview. Yeah. Anything you want to add to that, Teodora?
Yeah, so just on that note, the way I said that, you have to find that it's a natural fit for the company, the candidate is a natural fit for the company. In the same way, it's not that you're forcing it, but you are putting in the effort to ensure that it's a seamless process coming in. You want to ensure that you're showing the candidate before they even work there that, hey, my attention's on you, and we actually do care about this process. That kind of sets the tone for when the candidate starts as well. And it really does, create a more positive dynamic from when the candidate starts, from when the candidate is interviewed to when the employee actually starts their job.
And actually, I just wanted to ask, just going back to just the first question that we had about how interviews have changed, if you can maybe talk a little bit about just the virtual interview process, like, the changes throughout the pandemic and what it could look like for the future. Like, is it going to stay or not, or no longer be a thing? And, maybe some tips on how employers can even improve that process as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Whether it stays or not, I mean, I think to a point it will stay. Whether it, takes over in-person interviews, no, I doubt it will completely take over, the way it was before. However, I think we definitely are in the new age of recruitment and new hiring, and we need to adapt to virtual meetings and just, virtual everything. So with that said, I think that we need to realize that candidates are also adapting to this. I've had candidates who are newly in the market after working for a company for so long, they never did virtual interviews before, right? So on that note, it's like kind of have to have a little bit of understanding that if they're completely new to this virtual world and they've been in their job for 20 years, it's going to be new to them, right? They may feel nervous, they may not really understand maybe certain etiquette, when to mute, when to not mute, when to, so I think we just have to have a little bit of understanding that it is new for a lot of people, and it will stay for the most part.
And Teodora, I don't know if you have anything else that you'd like to add?
No, Eglys pretty much got that.
Okay, perfect. Let me see. I have one more question here. All right, let me see here. Oh, how do we hire? Okay, so how do we hire skilled candidates in low population areas in Northern Ontario, like North Bay, Sudbury, other than the traditional job posting and email blast?
Okay. Sorry, can you repeat the question? I just want to make sure.
Yeah. How do we hire skilled candidates in low population areas in Northern Ontario, like North Bay, Sudbury, other than using the traditional job posting and email blast?
Right. Yeah, I think, we've touched on a lot of points here that can hopefully help that, right? Like, again, the partnerships that the connections that you have with different companies, colleges, associations, it's definitely like the days of posting and putting are gone. So whether you're in a big city or small town, I think it applies to everybody. Looking for any kind of partnership that's going to provide you the services that Teodora was mentioning, the webinars, the email blasts. It doesn't all have to come from you. And then, of course, like being creative about the way you're presenting your jobs, right? And keeping in mind that if you are in one of those areas and people are relocating to other areas, then you want to, keep the interest. You're still competing with everybody, even outside of your area. Before, I think we were thinking, oh, well, we're just competing with the company next door. Now it's no longer. We're competing with all of Canada. We're competing with companies, around the country, because there is that remote factor and the relocation factor. So keeping that in mind, but I think using some of the tips that we've provided hopefully helps.
Okay, I don't know, Teodora, if you wanted to add anything else just before we wrap things up here.
No, that's everything. Just being more open to remote, and if you have the means to do that, you have the means to offer some relocation packages, that's definitely going to be a huge incentive to have people moving.
Okay, so I saw that Teodora, you posted your contact information and Eglys's contact information as well. So if anyone else has any more questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to them and follow up with this webinar. And like I said in the beginning, I am recording the webinar, so we will have that up on our YouTube channel. And other than that, Teodora and Eglys, if you have anything else that you'd like to add, other than that, thank you everyone for joining us. And I don't know if there's anything else. I can just close off this webinar for today.
So one of the attendees just asked if you'll be sending the link directly to them.
Oh, if you email, you can email here. I'll put it in. If you email info@TorontoJobs.ca, I can send you the direct link as well.
Yeah, one thing I'll quickly add, and just because this recently came up in one of my conversations with the client, is it's not all about money, right? So the last question about certain areas, perhaps the concern is, well, I can't compete with Toronto, I can't compete with the bigger cities, and it's not always about salary. A lot of people right now, like I said, are looking for flexibility. They're looking for a specific company culture. So it's, take whatever you have that you think is attractive and make sure you're advertising it, you're branding it as much as possible.
Okay, perfect. All right. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. Yes, so if you can email info@TorontoJobs.ca, I can send you the link. It's also on our YouTube channel. And if you would like to contact Teodora or Eglys, their emails are up in the chat over there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Bye.